Kartoffle is a new VR puzzle game from new VR developers Breach. I'll start by getting out of the way that yes, it is ostensibly similar to Lemmings, in that your main task is to guide a group of anthropomorphized creatures through several obstacles to a designated exit. Hopefully by addressing this, dare I say, lazy comparison nice and early, we can all focus on what Cartoffle has to offer, rather than be distracted by the long shadow cast by one of the greatest puzzle games ever made. So, will Cartoffle entice you to chip away at its puzzles, or will they have you boiling with rage? Like most games of its kind, Cartoffle places its levels into the VR space as a kind of floating island, and allows players to manipulate them through interactions with the controllers. You can zoom in and out and move around in all directions as you'd imagine. Despite this being a relatively sedate experience, the developers have provided fully featured comfort options for those of a particularly sensitive disposition. As you start each level, a puzzle is laid out before you. There's a start point, an end point, and an incomplete pathway in between. The player's task is to guide a set number, it's not always 100%, of the little potato people that the game calls spuds from start to finish, by adding elements to the scene that will allow them to safely navigate the route. It starts simple: place a launch pad to jump a gap, insert a corner piece so the potato folk don't tumble to their doom at a turn, or simply place a bridge over a gap. As you would expect, things quickly get more complicated, and by the time your level number is in the high teens, you're presented with a start and finish point with nothing in between and not enough pieces to traverse the gap. And this is where the game really comes into its own. With limited resources available and increasingly large or trap-laden levels to guide your spuds through, recycling of elements becomes essential and adds a welcome urgency to a game where there is no time limit or other overt threat. The blocks that comprise most levels and other elements, like trees and stone monoliths, are rendered in a bright, blocky, playful style that is mirrored in the upbeat music and cartoonish sound effects. It would be easy to dismiss these audio-visual design choices as basic or a bit unadventurous. And yeah, there's nothing groundbreaking or particularly exciting here, but Cartoffle brings it all to bear with a rather nice central theme of natural materials, and the spuds themselves, with their helicopter leaf hair and cheerful expressions, are completely adorable. One small frustration is that with spuds wandering in all directions and gadgets and gizmos pinging them around the levels, the rules on what constitutes a spud-on-spud collision are disappointingly inconsistent. Other death states are very well defined. Fall more than 2 block heights, it's mashed potato. Spring a potato into a wall or the propeller on the underside of a hovering block, mashed potato. Bump 2 spuds into each other, mashed potato. Sometimes, and other times they clip through each other harmlessly. In a game that encourages experimentation and creative problem solving, it's not a huge deal. It's just that it feels out of keeping with an otherwise tightly delivered experience. Cartoffle offers 60 levels, with secondary objectives of collecting 3 stars and guiding every potato to safety in each. I cracked through the first 20 with all potatoes and stars in about an hour, but the challenge steepens at that point and the playtime, not to mention the satisfaction, increases along with it. Getting every stage ticked off with 3 stars is likely to take between 4 and 6 hours depending on your skill and stubbornness with those additional goals. Thankfully, this relatively small amount of content is reflected in the relatively small price tag of $15. While it's tempting to assess Cartoffle alongside that other game, any amount of time spent with the adorable spuds will show that this misrepresents the game that developers Breach have put together. Cartoffle's ace card is that it encourages a creative approach to solving its puzzles. From only a short way through its 60 levels, there ceases to be a single solution to hunt for. Stages open up and offer an almost infinite number of ways to guide your potato-headed gang to the goal, with the only constraint being how quickly you can move elements from one point in the stage to another. Fortunately, the controls are tight, responsive, and simple enough to facilitate this, empowering the player with the tools required to be as inventive or direct as they want to be with their solutions. There's no ignoring that this is a slight offering, with a style and execution that could uncharitably be compared to something you would find on the store of your mobile device, but this is to do Cartoffle a huge disservice. In VR, the game benefits massively from the ability to fully manipulate the game's elements within the space. More importantly, the game is enjoyable and challenging from the start and is hugely addictive. as demonstrated by it triggering the coveted low battery accolade on my very first play. 7.5. Appealing.